Now, this morning, as I promised earlier, I have a very special guest with us today. His name is Blake Freeman, and he is the author of a new children's series. I'm very excited to learn about this book this morning. So here we are on WSMN 1590, The Holding Hour. Good morning, Blake, and thank you for joining us here.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How is it over there in California? Tell me what your temperature is.
It's actually a little chilly. I'm in San Francisco this morning.
Oh.
Unfortunately, I had to fly up here, which I feel San Francisco is kind of the Northeast to me compared to Los Angeles. So it's pretty chilly here. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, so we have minus 25 wind chill right now, with minus 2 degrees no wind chill.
You're kidding me.
No. So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, are you saying you have that in San Francisco?
Well, no, not at all. I feel bad even telling you about it.
Torture
where are you
us.
guys located exactly? Which city?
We're in Nashua, New Hampshire. It's in the southern
New
tier.
Hampshire, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sending you some warm love.
Okay, good. Thank you. So this is WSMN, the Holding Hour here. I'm your host, Elaine Holden, as you know, and I'm really excited about this new book. Can you tell my listeners the name of this book and a little bit about it?
Sure. The book is called Haibu, Lost in New York, and it's about a little girl who finds out she has a very special gift of speaking to animals, and she uses that gift to save animals worldwide, mostly on the wild animals and things like that. So we felt the book had a real possibility to kind of instill compassion in children as they read and start to understand that animals do have feelings, and we just do that in kind of the same medium that they get their other content from other cartoons that really don't have much of an impact behind them.
I noticed the illustrations in the book. They're really quite cute, and it does sort of have a cartoon quality, but certainly with an overall smoother look, a much nicer look to it. And Haibu is from Iceland. Is that correct?
Well, she's from up north. Not necessarily Iceland. She's just she's from the Arctic.
Okay.
When you're doing a very powerful, and this is there's a powerful impact behind this. We kind of have to make it a little bit of a made up place. We don't want to get people too hung up on whether or not something is geographically correct in the stories. We want them to remember that this is what the whole book is about and the impact. So. It's just better, when you do that.
Okay, that's great. So, really, why would you say it's important to teach children about wildlife? What's the importance? I certainly have an understanding of it, I think, but I want to hear it from your perspective. What really is important about the care that these kids need to learn about for wildlife?
Well, there are a lot of things. One, the studies are when children mistreat animals at a younger age, then they don't grow up as the best possible humans that they could be. Mm-hmm. That's unfortunate. But just wild animals are so important to our ecosystem. It's I was so ignorant to all that they do for us, and we're on the verge of some collapse in a lot of these species, and it can take a toll on what's going on in the world, and people just don't realize it. And it's unfortunate. So there's a lot more than just petting an animal and making sure it's loved. I mean, they're doing a lot for us that we take for granted and don't really know about. Just in keeping the ecosystem around us balanced.
Now that's really good. Can you tell me how you became so concerned with wildlife? We all, I think, have not been trained or taught enough about it. What's your personal story? What made you realize the importance of wildlife?
Sure, that's a good question. I'm actually here in San Francisco meeting with Wild Aid, which is wildaid.org is one of the biggest and best conservation movements for me for animals that exist. One, because you can really measure their success. So they stop the buying of illegal goods. And when you stop the buying, the killing stops too. And that's kind of their motto as well. But what they do is they stop, the sale of, get the sale of ivory banned in China. They've done that. They've done the sale of rhino horn banned in several countries. Like these things, they take the price down with these bans, and therefore people stop killing and poaching them so much. But I went to a couple of galas, and they're wild animal galas, and I was looking around, and I said, okay, well, all these rich people are drinking wine, and they're having a good time, and they're laughing while there's a picture of an elephant, with half of his face cut off in the front of the room. And I felt like it really wasn't getting anywhere. And I went to a very big, elaborate one, with 600 people, which was Wild Aid's, and it was extremely serious the entire time. They were there for a reason, and it was less for you to have a good time and more for you to realize what was going on. And it just struck a chord. It was like, wow, all of these people really do care, and there were some big names in Hollywood in that room. And it was very nice to see that these people had, they weren't there to show off a dress or anything like that. They were there for this purpose. And I started to learn that night because, their education that they put out, whether it be in a 3 or 5 minute video, is extremely moving. And if you want to see it, or any of your listeners, it's wildaid.org. And it's incredible. So that was the night where I first educated myself and figured out that I wanted to do something for this. And by writing Haibu, what we're able to do is we're able to educate future generations. And this fight for conservation efforts will get easier for these guys. They won't have to just raise money every year. Hopefully we're shaping a generation to grow up not wanting to, use ivory.
I have to say I was in northern China a couple of years ago, and I saw people selling furs from a lot of endangered species, and I was
that's horrible, by
shocked.
the way.
I was shocked.
Bad business.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Southeast Asian, I was in Southeast Asia about 7 or 8 months ago, and you can see the same thing, the transporting of these animals, birds, animals that are endangered, that are caged and sent to other places for zoos, private zoos. I'm not sure what else, but they're live animals to begin with, and some of them obviously die en route, and so they have to capture a large number so that there will be some survivors when they get to their final destination. That's pretty horrifying. Yeah. Now,
Isn't it?
It really is, and I'm hoping if people have just tuned in to WSMN 1590, you're listening to the Holding Hour. This is Elaine Holden, your host, and I'm talking to Blake Freeman, who is clearly a passionate advocate for wildlife and the preservation of wildlife. Now, you're really passionate about this, and I really think that it's wonderful that you found Wild Aid. And again, for my listeners, it's wildaid.org, and make sure you really check these guys out. But when did you become passionate? What was that moment, if you will, where you just said, this is wrong, I have to do something?
I think it was in our after our first meeting with Wild Aid as a Wild Aid as a partner for Haibu in our series. After meeting with the president of Wild Aid himself, and you see the passion and what this guy is doing, I really started to understand myself, that this is a serious problem. I mean, it's a real serious problem, and you've got people over in Uganda who are making, just pennies a day that are out there walking around trying to save these rhinos. And they're guarding them with guns, and they can barely feed their family, but they're so passionate about not letting the species go away. And when you see that, you can't help but to go, look, there's got to be something more I can do. And, that was my turning point, is when I saw that all these other people have given up everything in their life just to protect these animals. Then I felt a little guilty. It's got to be something that I could do a little better. That's kind of where, that's what turned me right there.
That's fantastic. Now, is this the first book you've written?
It is. I'm, as a kid, I would just always write and do fun things. But, I lived a kind of a completely different life until about 11 or 12 years ago. I basically was in a whole different business world. It was more of a 9-to-5, and I decided one day that I wanted to do something different and got into the film and TV business. I said I might as well go for the most hardest unattainable thing.
That's so writing. Cool. Tell my listeners more. Tell me more about this. Tell my listeners more about this, please.
Well, I'll tell you this. Whoever, all of your listeners, your life can always change in a blink if you want it to. I just said there's got to be something more for me out there. Not that everybody needs to be in the film and TV business. I just said there can't be somebody really standing over me, taking score if I try something that fell in life. So why not just try for the most unattainable thing there is? And I said, well, that would be kind of an actor or director in Hollywood. And I decided that at age 32, and it worked. And then I said, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing at all. So I figured, and threw caution to the wind. And long story short, I've got a couple of TV shows under my belt, and, 4 feature films, and the one most recently here was on Netflix called All About the Money, and I'm the lead actor in it with Eddie Griffin and Danny Trejo. I'm also the director and writer of the film. And then we have another that's now turning into a television series called Planet Sanity, but that movie's called A Journey to Planet Sanity, and it's a documentary. And it's a comedy documentary, but it's real. It's about debunking aliens and stuff that come to Earth, and it ended up being very funny. It's on Amazon Prime, by the way.
Awesome.
I don't know. It's just, I grew up in the South, in Nashville, Tennessee.
I kind of got that from the accent.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And it's also early here, so my accent's really coming out now. It's like, I'm tired. But I grew up in Nashville, and, you're kind of in a lane, if that makes any sense. It's very hard to me to explain, I guess. But you're told what to think, and you're told how to act. And that's just because that's what Daddy did, and it's very, whatever your thought process is, it's already instilled in you, then you better not, and if you sway from it, you'll be judged by someone. And I just, I don't think that's necessarily the healthiest mindset, even when it's supposedly, all in the best for you. It's just, I think you got to let people live and explore and understand. And I think they've become better understanding people. I became a better person when I actually moved away from the South. Not that the South are bad people. I'm just saying, for me, I started to understand things more. I became more involved, especially in animal advocacy, all these other things that I didn't really know about. And it's really just, it's not about the South. It's just really where you've grown up. I think all communities are probably like that. But I think traveling, like you said, you went to northern China. I just went for my first time. I just walked on the Great Wall this past summer, and it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And you start to understand cultures and, a little more respect. But that's kind of, I kind of wanted to blossom in a sense. I guess. And that's why
travel does that to you. I have to say, I hiked the Great Wall. It was at the end of December. And the wind was coming off the Gobi Desert, and and it was cold. I strongly recommend, if there was nobody else there, by the way, it was pretty much me. Not many other people. I know it's pretty crowded in the summertime, understandably so. So you probably had more company than I did, but the weather was a lot better in the summer. I
didn't go to the very touristy part. I went about an hour and a half outside of Beijing, I guess.
Yep.
Which is supposedly the best place to go.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, it's an insane trek just to move, 500 yards on that thing. It's a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine anybody building that.
I can't imagine anybody invading. It's just like, my gosh.
You got to imagine, after 3,000 miles long, there's a lot of people and generations who lived and died guarding nothing. So
I know. I mean, you look out over there, and it's just about, it's trees and mountains and rough terrain, and nobody's living there. So it's
I didn't see any animals either.
No,
from that wall.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. You don't see animals like you used to. You don't see wild animals. And, here in New Hampshire, of course, this is WSMN 1590. We're in Nashua, New Hampshire. And it's only recently that we've started to see wild turkeys again.
Really?
Yeah.
So have they passed any laws about that?
No, I think what it is the DDT years ago was so prevalent that most of the birds would sit on their eggs, and the eggs shells were so fragile that they'd crush, and they would not be able to come to term, and so these birds kept laying eggs, and the eggs kept cracking, and the birds weren't able to reproduce. So we saw fewer and fewer and fewer wild turkeys and hawks and eagles and a lot of the raptors. And now that the DDT is really out of the systems, those birds that did survive have been able to reproduce. So we're seeing more,
great.
But I mean, that's the thing, because we're also seeing the contamination of the water and the soil, and it's having an impact on our wildlife. Because these animals are not able to reproduce as well. I mean, look at the human reproduction issue, and it's a serious concern with all of the different pollutants that are in the soil and in the water and obviously in the air. But it's nice to see the wild turkeys back. It's nice to see the raptors in the skies again, where we hadn't had them, really, not many of them, for a long time. But I was with you. I did not see the animals or the birds in China. I was surprised.
Yeah, and I just don't know if they're eating them all or what's going on. But
I know.
Yeah, it seemed like they serve duck everywhere you go. I got to imagine that these ducks are high. There must have been a duck place every 5 feet in that place. Or a Kentucky Fried Chicken. Did you notice that? There was a KFC everywhere.
Oh, my gosh, yes. It was amazing.
They run every quarter. So, China, believe it or not, in all of their, there's some tough things that they're doing that it's hard to wrap my head around. But they are trying. They've done so bad and so poorly for so long. They are trying very hard to help the wild animals. They're actually working very diligently with Wild Aid Beijing to make a difference. Yeah, so believe it or not, that was the one. That's the one country that we were all just terrified of, because they're just they do so much there that's not in line with animal conservation. And then just literally in the last 5 to 8 years, it's gotten so much better, and they're very involved, and it's a really cool thing to see that they're actually trying so hard.
That's amazing. Now, is Haibu going to be in China at some point? Because I know this is a series. Will she be in China?
It is. We've been extremely lucky with getting her into a lot of things, and she's we even in professional sports here in America, there's a few sports that next year that she's going to be passed out. The books will be passed out for free for the first, few thousand kids that show up. And we've gotten very lucky in including the license of Haibu all over. And, we're donating it to a couple of countries to use for their government PSAs. So like Haibu says, look both ways before you cross the street.
Mm-hmm.
And now, there's our hopes are, we didn't approach this as we're going to write a book and hope it works. I mean, we're extremely tied in. We've got a lot of big advisors who do amazing things all over the world, who have come to help us with Haibu. They believe in it. They love the fact that, she's not a Disney princess. She's not waiting for a man to come kiss her and save her on a white horse. She's 10 years old. And she knows what she wants to do. She wants to save animals, and that's her purpose at the moment. Don't get in her way. She doesn't want to talk about anything else.
That's great.
It is, and this is a bit of a female empowerment story as well, and it was needed. It's the right time. As we were writing it a year ago and finishing it up, I had no idea that the Me Too movement was about to just unload on our entire city. And we welcomed it because it was the right time for us and for this project. So we are currently negotiating in a very large city here in the U.S., where we are taking over a museum, and it'll be the first of its kind. It is a wild animal interactive museum.
Wow.
Where kids can go and it's going to be virtual reality stuff, and they'll be able to walk from, section to section, and they'll learn about wild animals. And, that's our concern. We're not, Haibu is not about whether or not you hunt, legally. That's just, that's somebody else's fight, whether you want to do that. And it's not about domesticated animals and farming and things like that. Hers are strictly wild animals. It's the elephants, the rhinos, the tigers, and, those things that need help and do not have a voice at all, because they don't live in someone's home. So that's really what our biggest purpose is.
I think it's amazing. It's wonderful. Now, how have children reacted to Haibu? Because obviously you've got a lot of adults that are on board, that are excited, and they're motivated, and it sounds like you've got the people that you need to make this successful, which obviously it already is. So how do the kids react? What's the reaction that kids have?
Well, it's been really, really good. And I figured it out very quickly. The kids don't lie.
Yep.
Yeah. A couple of them look at me and figure out, what are you wearing? What's wrong with your hair? Whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. But then they say, I love the book. It's been great. We actually tested it a few times before we put it out. So we wanted to know how what the response was and how people responded. And then, because of that response and because of the way it's written, we didn't really dumb it down very much. It's very, very interesting. Kids that are 6 and 7 and 8 years old now are equivalent to when we were 15. So it's, they know more, and the internet age has absolutely let them know more. They're much more intelligent than we were, just because they were more worldly. It's at their fingertips. So it's exciting. It's been exciting to watch them spread it, and, people talk about it. But because of that, we now are negotiating feature film offers. We have a 52-episode animated offer that we're negotiating for television series. So you're going to see a lot of Haibu to come for sure. We're doing it now. So it's been an exciting thing. And because she's impactful, I could only wish that she would one day become some sort of Mickey Mouse for a new age.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Now, my listeners here on WSMN 1590, here in the Holding Hour, probably will get a copy of Haibu in New York. This is the first of a series, I'm told. Where is she going to go next in the next book? What have you got in the pipeline for more books for us?
Funny you should ask, because I was just told the deadline for the next book is this coming Monday.
Oh, well, you better get writing, but I hope you got at least an outline out.
It's almost finished. It's called Haibu in the Ivory Coast.
Oh.
And, yeah, she's just a little quick tidbit. She ends up in the Ivory Coast with some friends, and they're there to save the elephants, and the elephants are facing it's really bad poaching, and it's a very big adventure story. This one is as well.
Oh, so that's exciting.
We're excited about it. The artwork is already done, and it's been exciting to look at that.
Now, what's the projection as far as, are you going to have one a year, one every 6 months? I mean, I can see Haibu just continuing on for a very long time. What's your sort of time frame for a new book, as far as how often is it going to come out?
Well, so each book has the actual chapter book, which is good for about 5 to 10 years old.
Yeah.
It's kind of our sweet spot. And then we also have a picture book of each story that also comes out.
Okay.
So that's your preschoolers. It appears that it's about every 8 months a new book will come out in the series.
Wow.
So we'll keep those things coming out, and Haibu's adventures keep going. But it's really, I mean, I've got to be honest, it's kind of unreal. When you were introducing me, and I'm sitting in the hotel lobby here in San Francisco. I'm smiling because I'm like, 2 years ago, this wasn't even on the radar. Yeah, and it's an amazing, cool thing. Just because I as a kid, everything I read and watched shaped me, and this is just so exciting that I can do this. And I remember the feeling of how excited I was to be able to get into a book or watch a cartoon, and now to be able to deliver that. It's more fulfilling than anything else I've done.
Now, with your history in film, though, and I have to say that you've got some stuff still out there with Netflix and Amazon, and you've got a strong history in film, directing, producing, and writing. And you've already said that Haibu is going to be most likely in a series. Will there be a crossover between the books and the series? Will the kids be able to get copies of the series that, like sometimes you have based on such and such a novel or series of novels, you have these stories that are on television. Will that same thing be available to kids, or will it be a totally different sort of direction for the
series
movies?
is all of the same characters, but they're open and closed, so they're their own little tiny adventures. But the feature film follows book one, Haibu Lost in New York.
Okay.
And we've received 4 written offers already on the film. So it's unbelievable, exciting. But that first book is it's a very deep story of, a child that wanted to go, she runs off to try to prove herself that she can fish, and, just because she's a female, that she can do what everybody else is doing. But, she's 10. She doesn't really need to be out in the elements by herself. And she basically gets lost, and then ends up in a life or death moment with a polar bear. Those are not the nicest things when you're in the Arctic. And as he's growling at her and coming closer and closer, his growl starts to turn to words, and she figures out that she can understand him. And she doesn't do the best job of communicating with him, and she's still in shock from it. And she ends up dislodged on a piece of ice floating away, and she gets picked up by a boat that's going to New York, and that's how she ends up in New York.
Yeah.
That whole story, while she's in New York, she finds out about the circus through a lot of other intangibles, and goes to freeze the animals in the end. That entire story is the first feature film. And it's I wouldn't want it any other way. It's a very, very cool story. Haibu Lost in New York is not just because I wrote it. I'm my biggest fan, right?
Yeah. No, I think you've got a lot of fans out there. You're probably going to have to. You're going to have to stand toward the back.
It's a very cool story. I'm sorry. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I have a little friend. She's 10, and her grandmother and I knit together, and this was a story that I gave her. And she was bouncing and thrilled and excited about it, and she just locked right onto it. So that was, for me, that was really nice to see that child reacting, that personal reaction, that lovely connection. And I'm sure you see that all the time. And, see kids reacting. That's why I really asked you, how do kids react? Because I know you must have gotten the same reaction I did when, you ever hand out those books and see those kids and they get all excited. I do have to ask, though, how did you come up with this character, this 10-year-old little girl? How did you come up with her? Where did you get her?
I came up with Haibu just long before I knew who and what Haibu was going to be.
Yeah.
So I just knew she's a little Eskimo girl. And then I have... on the development of it, I brought in just a great team of friends who think like I do, wanted to do something amazing, especially in the kids space. And one of them, Tara Price, she's done a lot of work in developing out Haibu with me, and she's also the voice of Haibu. So if you go to Haibu's World on YouTube, there's a lot of kids content there where Haibu narrates, kind of like a old Wild Kingdom kind of thing, where you learn about the animals, and her voice is just perfect for Haibu, and it's been incredible. But she helped a lot, and we developed it out, and Danielle Crane, one of our other producers, she worked diligently on doing it as well, and we got it to where we wanted it, to where we feel like she was worldly enough. And a lot of people, it's funny, what's a worldly looking person? And if you remember the old singer Bjork from the 80s, nobody could figure out if Bjork was Native American, if she was Asian, or if she was just white.
Yeah.
And we said we need to create that kind of character so that all kids can kind of relate. And that's how that's how our look came about. And we want all kids to want to be Haibu or want to be friends with Haibu and not worry about the race, creed, or color.
I think that's fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, I have a quote from you, and you were quoted as saying, "We have a responsibility to the animals we are speaking for to create a moment that will have a real impact on their lives. To the world, it may be one animal, but to one animal, it may be the world."
It's
is that your philosophy? I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. It's profound.
It is. And the animals. The problem is they only know what's in front of them. Mm-hmm. And if we don't if we can't take time out of our lives just a little bit to understand that we while we're living, how irresponsible we are by not taking in consideration that these other things are living around us day to day, trying to live, love, and they're trying to prosper in their own ways, and here we are moving into their worlds and kicking them to the curb, and it's amazing the egotistical lifestyle that we have without thinking about anything else. And unfortunately we do that with humans too, and I think we need to be more aware of it. But animals don't have much of a voice at all, and I think that we got to work really hard to make sure people understand that.
I thank you for that. My time is almost up, and I have to say I have to get off here, but I cannot thank you enough for your time and to interview, and I truly appreciate it. WSMN 1590.
Thanks.
You're listening to 1590.